Impact of theoretical teaching, laboratory practice, and the use of specialist software in the meaningful learning of university students. From the social science research line, let's start. Introduction. The teacher learning process of university students in exact science must go beyond the traditional approach and incorporate new styles that have a positive impact on their academic training. This implies both the understanding of concepts, models, and theories, as well as practice in the laboratory and the use of specialized software for the validity of the result and interpretation of the theory reflect in practice. In order to achieve meaningful learning, considering the constructive approach. In the current area, the teaching learning process faces new challenge in which academics must use innovative methodologies in order to achieve true meaningful learning in university students. Also, students have to join with an active participation so that the learning objectives are achieved, that is, leave aside the passive attitude to transmit the knowledge. In this sense, the research question is formulated as follows. What is the impact of theoretical training on the subject? Determination of the coefficients of adiabatic compressibility and volumetric expansion of three-block polymers. Through experimental data of density and speed of sound. Complement with practice in the laboratory and the use of the specialized software in the meaningful learning of the undergraduate student. The null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis are described below. The first, theoretical training on the topic, determination of the coefficient of the adiabatic compressibility and volumetric expansion of three-block polymers through experimental data of density and speed of sound. Complement with practice in the laboratory and the use of specialist software not significantly influence the meaningful learning of the undergraduate students. The second is theoretical training on the subject, determination of the coefficient of adiabatic compressibility and volumetric expansion of three-block polymers through experimental depth of density and speed of sound. Complement with practice in the laboratory and the use of specialized software influence significantly in the meaningful learning of the undergraduate students. The review of the state of the arts allows me to explain the following. Teacher learning. Teaching is the process by which knowledge about a subject is transmitted, while learning is the process in which a person acquires knowledge, data, and information to solve a specific situation. It is also learning by trial and error. Traditional teaching model. The teaching centers model conceives knowledge as an external construction from a set of science knowledge of a discipline that the teacher is responsibility from transmitting to students, for which the teacher is responsibility for organizing the information developed by the scientists. Constructive learning model. The constructive approach conceives the student as responsible for their own learning and their skills, which require the identification of the problem, as well as knowledge that they have and that They want to investigate for the solution of the problem with critical thinking and creativity, while the teacher is responsible for facilitating the didactic strategy. Problem-based learning. This learning allows students to develop critical skills through thinking and problem solving with a high cognitive level. In order for the student to be interested in the subject and also to achieve learning. In this regard, it is highlight that learning is the responsibility of the student. Laboratory practice are understood as didactic strategy for the generation of scientific knowledge. And if before carrying out an evaluation is applied to know what the students know. During the practice will show greater motivation and interest, promoting the development in certain science skills. Orange Pro software is integrated as a computer system which consists of different functions that are used for different branches such as mathematics, statistics, physics, chemistry, among others. The student can view the graph generated by entering the data and execute the specific functions of the phenomenon analyzed, allowing greater interpretation, which are pedagogical tools for motivation and improve of student expectation. Meaningful learning. The meaningful learning theory postulated by Ausbel et al. Affirmed that the acquisition of new knowledge in a student is based on previous knowledge, which allow them to interrelate what they have learned with what is new to learn, different from rote learning. The methodology, the type and design of research. The research was developed under a quantitative, experimental, and longitudinal approach. The variables are theoretical training, behavioral model, laboratory practice of constructive model, origin pro software of constructive model, and meaningful learning. The measure instrument consists of 3 questions on demographic variables in 20 regions. The first 19 contemplate knowledge question about the subject, determination of coefficients of adiabatic compressibility, and volumetric expression of tri-block coupled dimers through experimental data of density and speed of some. And the last question in the pretest refer to need to apply theoretical and practical teacher learning methodologies to improve learning, while in the post-test a reference to impact achieved after the applied methodologies. The method used to collect information was longitudinal, thus it's a pretest in a post-test, were applied twice in person in the classroom, and a space where the participating undergraduate students met an intact groups. At the time, the link to the questionnaire was electronically, and they were given advice on how to fill it out. The student answered 3 questions of the categorical variables referring to demographic data and native regions with response option, of which they select one for each question. In addition, a final item was added to protest regarding the need to implement the didactic strategy on a Likert scale from 1 to 5. Also, in the post-test questionnaire, the last question served to assess the impact of the implementation of the didactic strategy teacher learning on a Likert scale from 1 to 5, from very negative to very positive. The participants were 91 undergraduate students from the third to sixth semesters of the degrees of chemistry, chemical engineering, and biological pharmaceutical chemistry participate, who were selected through the type of non-probabilistic samples of the type of intact groups. The characteristics of the select samples are the type below. Sociodemographic variables: age, sample profile. There were the 60%, the 60% of students to 17 years old to 20, and 21 to 24 years were 34%, and the last only 6%. And the sex, males 29%, feminine 71%. Bachelor degree, chemistry 2%, pharmaceutical chemistry, biology 94%, chemical engineer 4%. The data analysis describes statistics were used for data analysis, counting tables and graphs, comparing the finding of the pretest and post-test for the test of the central hypothesis. About the result, the university student survey in the pretest were asked how necessary it is to receive training to contribute to their academic training, with both theoretical and practical supports on the subject of determination of the coefficient of adiabatic compressibility and volumetric expansion of polymeric system through experimental data of density and speed of sound, complementing with practice in the laboratory in the use of specialized software. On a Likert scale from 1 to 5, being 1 totally disagree and 5 totally agree, 56% select option 5 as they totally agreed, 31% select option 4 as they agree, 90% select option 3 as they were impartial, 0 select option 2 as they did not agree, and 20% select option 1 by totally disagree. Therefore, the need to implement two theoretical and practical didactic strategy is high percentage was manifested. See graphic 1. Now consider the need to implement the theoretical practical didactic strategies, and considering the result obtained from the pretest as contrast of the result obtained in the post-test was carried out, from which favorable results were obtained regarding the significant learning of the students. Now see graph 2 and table 2. Now, about result 2. On the other hand, in relation to the impact generated of the student learning, 34% answered that it has a very positive impact, while 37% answered that it had only a positive impact. However, 28% respond that it had a regular impact. In this sense, non-negative or very negative impact response were obtained. You can see in the graph 3. Based on the result obtained, it is possible to confirm the meaningful learning theory of Ausbel et al. Given that from the pretest applied to university students, in which prior knowledge was determined, it was possible to interlay the new knowledge identified in the post-test. Derived from the didactic strategy implemented for the constructions of new knowledge, which include theoretical training, laboratory practice, and the use of specialized software. Therefore, it is confirmed that the traditional teacher-based teaching approach with the exclusive transmission of knowledge, complemented with the constructive learning approach, based of student learning and knowledge construction, has a significant impact of the meaningful learning of university students who participate in this research. The next set are pretest questionnaire and the post-test questionnaire. The conclusion, the analysis of the state of the art and result obtained consecutive allows us to conclude that the teacher learning process is constantly changing. From the traditional teaching-based teaching approach to a student-based learning approach. The latter support in constructive theory. The foregoing is due to the new demands in the training of the next professionals, who after graduating from a professional career must have significant learning. That is, learning added to previous knowledge and with applicability in the real world. Hence, the new teacher learning strategies that include the classic master class, problem-based learning such as experimental learning, laboratory share a direct contribution to the theory of meaningful learning of the constructive approach was achieved. Given that with the analysis of the state of the art and the result obtained, two evaluation instruments previously validated by experts were generated, in which quality and quantitative variables were incorporated, which allow when describe the population under study and confirm the theory, in addition to identify the significant percentage of learning achieved. Likewise, the central hypothesis was verified, given that the null hypothesis was rejected and the alternative was accepted were theoretical training on the subject, determination of the coefficients of the diabatic compressibility and volumetric expansion of trivial copolymers through experimental data from density and speed of sound, complemented with practice in the laboratory and the use of the specialist software, significantly influenced the meaningful learning on the undergraduate student.